Welcome back to a brand new episode of Blaze and BESKAR. I am your host, Jeremy Bloor, and I'm here for a reason. The sun has just kind of come out from the clouds. It's been raining all day, but I've had a beautiful time underneath what is my favorite tree. This one specifically, no, but the type of tree, yes. I'm talking to you today about the twin trees of Valanor. And I thought it was so fitting to show you guys what has been a tree that has been so impactful in my life. And it is the one behind me, the jacaranda. You might see around me and up on this hill and even on the branches of the tree, it is purple, rich purple. It's on the ground, it's called purple carpet. It's when at a specific time of the year, it's only 3-4 weeks of the whole year, barely any time, the jacaranda, it blossoms the most beautiful flowers, and Sydney is just covered in the most beautiful purple. Everywhere you go, you can find little leaves and flowers. Nothing half of what your pinky might be. It's my favorite time of the year. My favorite time of the year, because if you could fly over Sydney, it's just rich in purple. I have a little bit of a closer tie to it. My family, my great, however fucking long, grandfather actually brought this tree from South America as a seedling. Now all of their seeds are in hard encased shells. He brought a bunch over and he gave them to a German botanist in a Sydney laboratory, and they brought this tree to fruition. It's a very fast-growing tree, so a lot of the time when Australians were trying to, pimp their lawn, they would plant these trees, and it could grow up to 10 meters a year for 3 years, and then just stop. Beautiful, beautiful trees. But let's talk about the trees that was centered around Tolkien's most impactful universe, the twin trees of Valanor. So I've got a couple of points here to talk about them. Nothing in particular that is going to be too long of an episode where I have to dive deep, because this is from the Silmarillion. This is the first chapter or first age of Middle-earth. This is a book that I'm going to be reading on my Audible on Mandalore, and I hope you guys watch that at the time, but this is just a very brief summary of that. Influenced heavily by Phidias McCormick. Thank you so much again. I love you so much. I love seeing you in my comment section. You've inspired me so much, and the reason why I've been researching this so much. I haven't read the book yet, but I've been researching this so much is because of you. So I have to thank you for that. So the twin trees of Valanor. They were actually created by Yavanna, one of the Valar, as a gift to Valanor. Now, these two trees resided at the top of Valanor. It was kind of, if you see it is a long-ish kind of up towards a peak, where at the top you have the two trees. The first one being, I hope I say this right, Telperion, which is the silver tree, and Lorin, which is the gold tree. They basically embody the different forms and unique forms of light within Valanor, a gift from the Valar, the gods themselves, to be able to spread their beauty and their light across the world. But it means something slightly different. The light is not necessarily just the sunlight that today. Oh, they're going crazy. They're brush turkeys. They're not the light that we have today. It's a light that casts out darkness. You can see in I just finished the Rings of Power. They're coming back. The last episode of Rings of Power, when they draw out all of the darkness from Galadriel. They actually harness the light from the ring and put it into Galadriel, which is like you can see it kind of expel like venom and like a dark plague. So that general brightness and the light, it only infused in Valanor itself, but later on it will go and spread across the whole of Middle-earth, but for different reasons. So, what is the role of the Valanor what's the role of these Valar trees in the Valinor's lives and also the Elves' lives? Valinor as the island. It provided alternating cycles of light, basically shaping Valinor's unique environment. I can't really read my writing too well. Basically, it's to the elves of the Valar's blessing. Valinor itself is just, it could not survive without the light of the Valar trees, the two trees. It's kind of interesting in that way, because the different cycles, what you're thinking of is not necessarily dark and light, like the darkness. It's talking about the sun and the moon. So even at night, even in the dead of night, you'll be able to see a little bit of light, and that is that silver kind of fluorescent glow from the moon, the kind of misshapen light coming from the sun from the other side of the world. Really, really interesting to see how Tolkien could put these two together and give us an alternate version of something that is so close to home. It's one of the reasons why it resonates so well. Why Lord of the Rings and the whole Middle-earth universe has just set the standard for fantasy. It set the bar, and people move from that because of Tolkien's immense imagination. But it is a symbol of light and purity. This is my third point. It represents purity, hope, and the sacredness of the Valar's creations. The light emitted was a divine form of illumination. So, as I was saying before, the trees itself, they are the light within Valinor itself. Now, it wasn't said at this time of a light that spread across from Valinor to Middle-earth and Numenor. Now, obviously, one might be affected by that light, but it is seen to be Middle-earth was shrouded in a darkness, not created by the light of the sun and the moon until later. So let's talk about, before we get into the sun and the moon, there was one thing that happened in the Silmarillion, which is the creation of the Silmarils. Now, the Silmarils are multiple gems, really. They are multiple gems that Fëanor, I hope I'm saying that right, he captured the light of the two trees in the Silmarils, and it adds this mystic power, kind of like the rings of power, but he captured all of the goodness, all of the light in these trees, and unfortunately tied the fate of the trees to the fate of the jewels. It's very similar foreshadowing for that of Sauron and the One Ring. With the destruction of the One Ring, Sauron will be no more. The same with the trees, but with everything, very much like Star Wars, dark rises and light rises to match it. So you have the light side version of that compared to the dark side. The light side version being the harnessing of light to give power and restore divine energy to the lands of Middle-earth, all harnessed into these Silmarils, these jewels. Is that something that is a bit like Icarus? Yeah. Now, if you guys don't know the tale of Icarus, Icarus was a Greek god. I believe I could be very wrong about the Greek part of it, but he flew too close to the sun, and he burned his wings. He flew way too close, given the power of flight, and then burnt by the sun because he could not withhold the powers of the creation given to him. So number 5, we have the destruction by Melkor and Ungoliant. Now, if you guys have seen Ungoliant, okay, let me just say, for any arachnophobic person, devastatingly disgusting. Ungoliant is a giant spider, one that towers over even the likes of Smaug himself. Ginormous, pure embodiment of evil, alongside Melkor. Now, Melkor is known by another name. Now, that name is Morgoth. For any person that has been watching Rings of Power, they talk about Morgoth a lot. Morgoth being the alternate name for Melkor. Both Melkor and Ungoliant destroyed the two trees, kind of in an act of rebellion against the Valar to show that they were more powerful. In this, they created all that is evil, the Balrogs, the minions of Morgoth, the tainting of Sauron. Basically, every bad thing that happened started from the genesis of the destruction of the twin trees. Now, these twin trees, although they are a symbol of light, with that destruction, a lot of Middle-earth and also Valinor was thought to be over. That was the end of all light, of all good. But the Cimmerals still held those light. Now, in the book, The Silmarillion, Morgoth took the jewels, the Cimmerals, and put the jewels in their crown. Fucking crazy. Harnesses both the light and the dark, controls everything. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Morgoth was, twice, if not 3 times more powerful than Sauron. Get that. 3 times more powerful. Anyone in that time was just ridiculously overpowered. It was basically in that first age, it was a clashing of gods, and in the clashing, in their quake, you get the creation of Middle-earth. Really, really interesting to see that, well, it could be something different. It could have been so much more had Morgoth not seeked that destructive power. Had Fëanor not harnessed the light from the trees and tied them into the Cimmerals, we would never have on Middle-earth, but it would also never be as good as what it was, because, as I said, with dark rising, light rises to match it, vice versa. Now, what was the impact of the loss of the Cimmerals? Basically, the elves departed from Valinor on their quest to destroy Morgoth. Now, you see this at the start of Season 1 of Rings of Power. You've got Lady Galadriel and Elrond and so on, and her brother. Galadriel was growing up at this time, but her brother went over and he was fighting in the war, and you see these big mounds and mounds of dead bodies of elves all on the ground. That was the initial departure. That was at this point. It's what drove the elves away from their homeland, the land of undying, basically, where they all end up going anywhere. Their souls venture back towards Valinor. Really, really interesting concept that they were so driven by their hatred of hate itself that they became what they wanted to destroy. Really, really, really cool. Loved it. I loved every single part of it, and I thought it was such a cool visual imagery to be able to see that in Rings of Power, which, I know it gets a lot of hate, but I personally really, really enjoyed it. So, that's one of the biggest impact of their loss, was the leading of the elves to Middle-earth. They never would have been anywhere near, Lindell or anything like that if it wasn't for Morgoth and Ungoliant destroying everything that was good. But before the 2 trees died, they actually created it was created from their fruit, their last bearing fruit, the sun and the moon. Now, obviously, the silver tree created the moon, and the gold tree created the sun. But it didn't just light Valinor at this time, it lit all of Middle-earth. Every land on the map was all created by, or was given light by, the beauty of the fruits of the twin trees. I love that concept. I love that concept, and it makes it so impactful at the end at the end of season 1, where of Rings of Power, when you see the creation of Mount Doom and how, with the clouding of smoke, that it was completely destroying all aspect of light in that area, which is why the orcs were able to see. It adds that next level of importance of light. Nothing in Middle Earth works without reason. It's all important in their own ways, and it's something that allows so many people to relate to it so heavily. But that light, that goodness, it could just not penetrate the deep, dark ash of Mordor. Really, really cool stuff. Really, really cool stuff. And basically just allowed them to their light across the whole world and basically live forever. I mean, until obviously the destruction of the sun and moon, but I do truly believe that would be impossible. So what does this mean? What does this mean as an actual story itself? Now, obviously the trees aren't as important inherently now. They're in Valanor. They don't do anything. The sun and the moon, it's all of its fruit has bared its fruit across all of Middle Earth. The really important part of this is understanding the power of light. It's in Ring of Power when you get to see the greatest elf put all of his light into the Valar tree, or the tree of Valanor. It's a seedling of that tree, one of the great trees. I can't remember. Let's get its name back. I really don't want to misread that one. It is Laurelin, right? All of those golden trees are seedlings from Laurelin. I find it so poetic. Now, when the Balrog came up and tried to put all of his darkness, now that was the same thing that Morgoth and Ungoliant did, but at a very small scale. Now, the Elves are talking about how they didn't have the protection of the Valar when they didn't have this tree with them. It's because it did the same thing as it did previously. Being a seedling of Laurelin, it was able to shield them in a protective barrier. It allowed the elves to have sanctuary in a land that was free of all evil. Had they ventured outwards, they would find death and peril, and they would be susceptible to all things that men and dwarves and hobbits are all susceptible to, be it had knives or whatever. So you have the general protection of the gods. They're basically the favorite children, which it's so annoying. But the favorite children have been given a sanctuary. Now, I loved looking in Khazad-dûm when Durin III, he had his own seedling of the Laurelin, which was, absolutely fucking gorgeous to see that shining light in the middle of a dark cave, all underground, yet life can still sustain. I think it just adds that extra level of poetry. And, I hope this has helped you guys kind of understand. I hope it's helped you guys understand what it means to have that light, why the elves are so powerful, why they are truly the embodiment of good, the reason why they are there, and the events of the second and third age, how none of it would have happened if it wasn't for Malachor and Ungoliant. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.